Welcome, Kathleen. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to it.
Awesome. So, I'd love for you to start out by telling us what it is that you are doing right now.
Sure. I am a writer editor and I have 20 years of experience in the communications field, mostly in the government sector. I have insatiable curiosity about the world and how it works. And that curiosity has led me to these very interesting topics and subject areas that I write about. Everything from international affairs to science, technology, even aviation. And along the way, during these 20 years, my career has been very, very good. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I've had great experiences with top-notch professionals in the US as well as internationally. But I have to tell you that it wasn't easy and it wasn't smooth. I like to say sometimes I feel like I grew up in the office and the maturation process was not very pretty, let's say. And what I learned along the way is that there are a lot of other people who had similar situations. They had difficult career decisions to make, and they were often pulling me aside as the sort of trusted colleague to talk about their situation and their work and what change that they wanted to make. And it was through these informal conversations and sort of informal mentoring and helping people that I would use a variety of stories to share with them what I had done in certain circumstances and how I'd resolved it. And how so often what we read and see in the news doesn't apply to us, right? It doesn't affect our reality. It's like I was reading Harvard Business Review and all the online articles about how my career was supposed to go, but it didn't go that way and it wasn't reflected in my reality. So I found that it was really important to stand back, take a good look at all these stories, and write my own rules to really create the new direction that I wanted to go in. And that's what led me to where I am now, which is writing and editing in the book writing world. And I've flipped my priorities a bit from full-time writing and editing for other people to writing and editing for my own personal projects.
Wow. Wow. Well, that you tied it together perfectly, and that is a beautiful and journey, and I think that many people will be able to relate to the fact, the curiosity aspect. I love how you said the insatiable curiosity, and also that sometimes it's a bumpy road. Many times it's not, and that's when we need somebody, right, to talk it through, to hear from somebody, at those moments when we are facing different situations in our own career and getting to where we want to go. So, how were you always curious, even as a child?
Yes, absolutely. And I always had curiosity about technical things and how things worked. And, I was, I guess, a geek in that way, a bit of a nerd that I was always interested in that. But I was the person who was always, taking things apart and putting them back together. And I, really enjoyed that sort of renovation aspect of writing, where for very, many years, I was taking some writing that someone else had written and editing it and renovating it and making it more clear and concise.
Oh, wow. Okay, okay. Is that editing?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So wait, so is that the editor's job?
Yes, yes. In the roles that I've had, so it's it could be supporting an executive who is quite busy and often is really interested in having most things drafted, and then they, of course, review and add their special sauce, and then I come back and clean it up and do the final edits. So there's just an incredible amount of opportunity in the writing editing world now, and it's really growing. And I wanted to share that with your audience as well. If anyone has ever had this interest, now is the time to really pursue it. If you think about it, of course, most folks are too busy to write. A lot of people, of course, are too busy to read as well. But it is the number one way that people know you first. They know you by your writing. Usually it's by an email, usually, or a text or something like that. So, getting to know people through writing is become more and more an important business tool. And it's quite lucrative and the field is growing more and more as many people are too busy to do it themselves, and they want that help.
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of one of the main ways or one of key ways of also marketing, right? Getting in front of people like in their emails, in the social media, right? It's how, your writing is really whether it connects or not with people.
Yes, I agree. And it's also for me, I've just always had a desire and an interest in using my writing for good reasons and for positive messages. And so I've always really, I call myself mission oriented that way because I really need to align with the missions and the goals of the organizations that I'm working with. And I want it to be for positive reasons. And these are some of the motivations that are propelling me now as well, because I really love helping people and I love giving that positivity because I find in today's world often the one thing that they really need at that moment of uncertainty is encouragement.
Totally. I mean, words, um, whether they're written or spoken, can like move somebody's heart and soul. They can change your mood. They can really uplift.
Yes, yes, and I've really been fortunate that I've been writing for good for a long time, and it's been successful. And the work that I produce, I feel like it stands alone. It's something that can be judged on its merit, and whether that's helping someone achieve an award, I'm writing an award nomination for someone, or some sort of executive communication to really tap into the goals of the organization to communicate that. But when it comes to book writing and this, current project that I have just been so satisfied and so fulfilled, and it's really been a delight to release something out into the world and to be able to help so many people.
That's wonderful. So tell us a little more. If we go back to your childhood, this kind of nerdy child who likes to take things apart. So, how did you notice? Did you write already as a child? Kind of how did you notice and how did you connect with writing?
Yes, so writing has always been something that came easily to me. I was fortunate that I had very good schooling and education, even in the elementary level, and I was always interested in it, and it was something that was quite easy for me. I always did it. I've always journaled. I've always been interested in short story writing and that sort of thing. But of course, it's something that I never considered it. Let me say, terms of like fiction writing and that sort of thing, I never considered that as a profession. I was always a nonfiction, detail-oriented, organized writer. And so when I was very young, I was again interested in technical things and how things worked. And so I spent a lot of time at my father's elbow, learning how things worked and taking things apart and sort of his eternal helper. And he had a career that was in a technical field. And he died rather suddenly when I was 11. And so I spent a lot of time trying to get to know him through documentation and research. And I know now that that was, a very much a longing and missing him. But it all came together in this flow in terms of writing because I was writing, blogs and I was writing short stories and I was writing technical information. And that really led me toward this career in technical communication that I found very fulfilling.
So did you go to college for?
Yes, I have a degree in communications consulting from George Mason University, and I have several additional certifications in strategic communications planning as well as technical communication certification. If you think about it, it's kind of like, the HGTV how-to stories that we're so addicted to. That really is technical communication. It's wonderful the way they do it because it's in such an entertaining way. But the scope of technical communication is quite broad and includes everything from instructions to how to renovate your kitchen.
So essentially, you were clear already on the choice of your major, like kind of what you want to focus on from early on.
Yes, it took me a long time. I was always working full time and a student part time. So I was sort of the eternal night student.
So you go for this technical communications degree, and then in parallel, you started your career in technical writing.
So I should back up and just say the broad umbrella would be communications. And so in the government sector, that can be anything from, outreach to partnership development to um, uh, internal communication specialty or an external communication specialty, media affairs, all those things fall under that communications umbrella. And those are some of the many roles that I held in the 20 years that I was in that track. And it was later, I want to say in the last 10 years or so, that I switched more toward the technical communication track.
Okay.
And then most recently in the last year to book writing.
Okay. So in layman's terms, so what falls under, like, if somebody likes writing, somebody likes communications, it might be a natural strength of theirs. What falls under this communications umbrella? What do people actually do
Hmm.
in their job?
Sure. Sure. And you touched on it earlier. So it would be everything from, marketing to your social media manager, your content creators, your content creators, those writer editors. And a lot of times you want that to be in a strategic approach, right? You want to make sure that it's linking back to your branding, your goal, your mission, and using the keywords and, optimization that you want online for social media, for an example. But in business, it's very broad. In business writing, like I said, it could be anything from helping a unit nominate people for awards to publishing their monthly newsletter to, part of their email marketing or outreach or partnership development. It's very broad, and it's like I said, there's a huge demand at the moment. And let's say it's a business example. Within business, it could be any specialty, right? So it could be, a business that specializes in science. It could be one that specializes in IT or technology. And so I just wanted to share this opportunity with your listeners because a lot of people don't quite understand how broad it can be and the demand that is current.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then, so you started in broader communications, but then went into technical communications.
Right.
How did you decide on the switch?
Yes, well, I talk about this a little bit in the book as well. Some of and let me just give you an overview of the book to provide some background there. It's 10 true stories from my career, and
So
each
just to,
story.
I know you bringing up the book, but so it's you have written the book, The 10 Little Rules When Good Jobs Go Bad, by, and here if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. I'm holding it up.
Yes, yes. It's 10 Little Rules When Good Jobs Go Bad. And then the subtitle is Learn, Grow, and Reclaim Your Power at Work and in Life. And so it's really those lessons learned that are part of the subtitle there. And it includes the 10 true stories that are each chapter. And then the lessons learned are the rules that are named in each chapter. And at the end of each chapter, there are journal prompts that allow the reader to really take in the story and then think about their own career and their own rules, and allows them to have blank pages so that they can write their own rules.
Yeah, I mean the book is very well structured and kind of very easy to use. And each of the rules, you know, each of the chapters is, I think, very doable. You can do each chapter in one sitting, and then reflect. It kind of like, I like how you tie in the reflection. And who doesn't want to reclaim their power in work and life?
Right, right. And that's, back to your original question about the switch to technical communication. As an example, in chapter 5, which is rule 5, it's align interests and skills. And then chapter 6, rule 6 is leverage boredom. And that was really this turning point in my career where I mastered the content very quickly and the job very quickly. And I was doing a lot of reflecting through journaling, through getaway weekends, trying to really get quiet and center. I was talking to a mentor. I was using every tip I could think of and trick in the book to really get quiet and think about this change. And what I came up with was, gosh, I love that feeling of being at my father's elbow, and I love that sense of fixing things and renovating and making things better. And um, I've always had this interest in technical topics. I wonder what certification I could seek and achieve that would take me in that direction in a more formal way. And honestly, I always praise this certification that I received online, which is the most valuable certification I've ever achieved. And it was wonderful and took me in that next direction. So I went from a science content area to a technical content area. And I also went from sort of external communications, which are very reactionary, right? It's, you're constantly reacting to the what did the public say in the social media post, or what did the press release say? What is the media saying? And I went to an internal communications role, and it just changed my life because I really needed that non-reactionary type of work.
That's a great delineation. So when you were doing these self-reflections, right, going through and coming up with some of these exercises, so something wasn't working and you were looking for a solution. Is that why you were journaling, why you were taking these weekend, the time for yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that I'm a searcher. I'm someone who's always interested in professional and personal development. Um, and also, we're always sort of transitioning into the next phase of life. And at that point, I was an empty nester. My son had gone off to college. I was really thinking more about the type of work that I wanted to do that maybe had more meaning for me, but also a little bit more um, of a risk to see if I could do it, right? I mean, I was actually changing topics in such a drastic way. At the time, I was in a conservation office that was, devoted to ocean conservation and um, clean air and clean water. And I switched topics to aviation. And so that was a risk, and it was something that I had to accept and I had to really face. Can I do it? And will it work out? And I felt like I was able to take that risk at that time.
And this is when the change to more technical focus happened?
Right.
Okay. And did you feel like, so what was the difference in how you felt when you made that switch?
I really felt like I was on the right track. I had a more of an internal motivation as opposed to an external one. I I was um I was very excited, and in a way I felt like I had sort of um jump-started my career a bit to add new energy and enthusiasm to a new kind of role. But as you may read in the book, it didn't work out too well in that first step forward because of the organization. And I try to always make it clear when I'm talking to folks that every job is going to change. It's always going to be a job cycle. And sometimes it's you, sometimes it's the organization, but only you can change your direction and only you can fix it.
Mhm.
So in that case, I did go to I was completely aligned in the role that I wanted in the new profession that I was or the let me say the new interest that I was pursuing, but the organization was flawed. And so
Did
I
that make
had
you
some,
question? Did that make you question whether technical writing was the right track?
absolutely, yes, yes. It made me question everything because I really felt like I had done my homework. I felt like I had done my due diligence. And I was really blindsided to learn that the organization did not have the resources that they promised in the interview. So, um, a lot of the products and tasks that I was given, I couldn't really fulfill them to a very high quality or high standard. And in the communications field, your product is your calling card. And so I couldn't afford to have substandard products or results because that's it. That was my future. So I had to quickly forgive myself for the unknown, which is the name of the role in the chapter. I had to talk to my friends and family as well as my coworkers, which was super helpful because I did, you know, I was being it was a gaslight situation where they were telling me one thing, but the reality was something else. And so I was really doubting myself and doubting my decision. And it was the coworkers who really, helped me to see that you only know 50% of the information when you go into a new job. And they always hold that other 50%. And there's always an inherent risk. I liken it to going on a blind date.
You really find out the reality after you join, right?
Exactly. And you have to, like I say, accept the risk, accept the reality, and be ready to pivot or change if needed.
Yeah, I love that. That is very true. So you decided kind of through confirmation, right, or being validated by some, whether it's colleagues or people around you, that you need to make a change, not necessarily in your direction, but in the company.
Absolutely. And then other times, as I, outlined in the book, it was me that I was ready to make the change. And sometimes it's the organization. So
It's hard to know. It's like, how do you know? I think that's what people struggle with. It's like whether, it's kind of unclear whether someone, it can be on person's mind. Is it just a company? Is it like my field of work? Is it the industry, or do I need to change functions, and change what I'm doing like totally inside out, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's that self-doubt and that, sometimes it's really a gut punch where you're trying to, reset. You're trying to pivot from one to the other. And I find that, at the end of the day, it really takes courage, commitment, and community in order to make these changes and transitions because you can't do it alone. You really have to make sure that you're aligned internally before you make these changes. And
Thank you.
you, at the end of the day, have to accept the risk that is involved.
How long did it take you to start looking for something else?
I was there, I want to say 6 months or so, and I was immediately looking for a job. And this is where the universe kind of aligned a little bit because I had applied for a job back in the organization in the conservation area where I had left. And you know how it is nowadays. I heard radio silence that was just ghosting. I had no updates. Had no idea what happened to my application. And shortly after I started my new job search, I got a call from them saying, "Hey, we know you applied for this over a year ago, but we're wondering if you're still interested." And I was so grateful, and I felt like it was definitely a sign to from the universe to follow.
Amazing. So can you tell us what is technical writing?
Technical writing is anything that involves a technical topic, writing about a technical topic, or it can also involve technology, right? It could be in terms of like the writing that's required for those little help menus or the chat that's coming at you as you're learning a software program. And that's the definition that the Society for Technical Communication uses. So if anyone has further information, further questions about technical writing, all that it encompasses, as well as the certifications and the different types of jobs, I would direct them to Society for Technical Communication. And then another great resource for anyone, this is not just technical communication, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics has a wonderful, wonderful resource for wage data. And so, for example, if you're interested in switching to technical writing or you want to know more about it, you can just look it up by state, by region, by county. I mean, it's such a wonderful resource, but it's not just limited to technical communication in that database. Of course, you can look up podcasting, you can look up interviewing, you can look up any job, and you can know, for example, what is the salary that I would make here in Virginia versus where you are in North Carolina. It's a really powerful resource.
So to me, what comes to mind when you're talking about writing right now, like these chat GPT, right? The biggest application is in writing, summarizing, paraphrasing, communication. Does that mean that those jobs are going away?
It does mean that they will feel the impact of AI, but so for example, in the government sector, I can speak to that. When you use AI, often it does not cite its sources. And so even though you can say, please write me a blog post, less than 1,000 words, about aviation history, something like that as your prompt, it's not going to cite the sources. So in the sector that I have worked in, no one will use that content because you need to be able to cite your source and it needs to be fact-based and it needs to be true. So um, that's one example of how AI in the government sector would be more limited. But in other ways, folks who do use AI, let's say in the private sector,
Especially for
and they,
editing.
I'm sorry.
Especially for editing, kind of what you were talking about. Like you can have these prompts, right? Make it more concise, make it more formal, make it more fun, Like you can take like a rough, something that's a really rough draft, or you kind of know what the idea is you want to communicate and use AI to change it around. To edit.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's very powerful and it's very helpful and useful. But a
Mhm.
lot of times it is missing the proper tone for the proper audience. It might be a little bit inaccurate that to need more editing and fine tuning. It might not appeal to that key target audience that you're going after. And so the type of writing that I did in my profession was really focused on making sure you're answering all the questions of the probable reader.
Mhm. Okay, okay. So tell me, how did you go from now technical writing to writing your own book?
Ah, yes, thank you. It's just been a wonderful journey, and I can reference the last two chapters and the last two rules, which are bet on yourself and embrace uncertainty, because that is exactly the turning point for me, where I had reached the top of my career ladder. I was at the highest level of my organization, and I love the people, love the camaraderie, the teamwork, and just incredible professionals. Um, but at the same time, I was getting older. I was thinking about this internal motivation that I spoke about. And I started to, I did a career boot camp through my alumni association as an example. I did several other personal development activities. And this question kept coming to me, which was, gosh, what would it be like if you took all your knowledge, skills, and abilities and actually devoted that to your own something that really was of interest to you and not for the client or for the organization. And it really started to sort of haunt me that I had spent so much time writing for other people and not enough for myself. And that was coming together at the same time that, as I had mentioned, I had a lot of informal mentoring opportunities with my colleagues, and I had helped them many times through these stories. And then that aligned completely with a wonderful encounter with a publisher who was, the publisher of this particular book has 9 books in the series. My book is number 9, and number 10 is coming out in February. And the purpose of this series is to help people live a more authentic life and uh, create more satisfaction in their life. And so this alignment, this fact that all of these factors came together at the same time that I met her and that I was interested in making this switch was really pretty magical. And I do describe that in the book as well.
So wait, wait. You have this wish, you have this desire
Hmm.
at this point to create something of your own. You've been writing and doing stuff for companies or government or organizations, and you have this longing. And then essentially you just kind of like the events and the next steps appear.
Well, I was putting together my resume and looking over my long career documentation. I was getting older. I also had some health concerns that were a factor. And I was I knew this publisher and we were texting back and forth and joking, and I was saying, gosh, I've had a cast of characters in my career, and I could easily write about this. And there could probably be a 10 little rules here how to survive bad jobs. And that was the original concept and idea. And the more we talked about it and the more we thought about it, it was clear that not all jobs are bad, and it's really how to thrive, and how to pivot and turn bad jobs into back into good ones. So yeah, she had an opening and an opportunity, and she reached out to me and said, "How about it? Do you want to give it a try?" And I was just so grateful and so honestly overwhelmed with joy that it was the perfect timing, the perfect moment to make that switch. So I signed the contract to write the book in January. I continued doing my day job and book writing on top, and that lasted until March. And then there was no way I could continue doing both. And I had that aha moment of, you know, it's it is a bit of uncertainty to go forward in this in a full-time fashion, but I need to accept the risk and um, see where that will lead me, because I was really ready for that deeper job satisfaction.
I love that. I love that story. So you've been a full-time book writer since March? Did you
Yes,
say?
and so the book contract was signed in January and it was completed in July, and that's very fast, 6 months. But there's no way I could have completed the book if I hadn't gone full time to make that happen.
What an amazing story. I love that. So the 10 rules, I know you mentioned some. How about rule number one? Know your now or never moment.
Yes, yes, that one is a example of when I was changing and the organization was fine. And I had just returned from living overseas, and I was back in the US. And so I had the pressure of, buying a house and getting settled and getting my son in school and all of those things. So I was in a hurry to get a job. And even though I had this writing interest, and even though I wanted to pursue it at that time, I felt like, okay, I need to, really kind of go with the flow here and get that job quickly. And that's what I did. And it was at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., which is, quite a prestigious organization of journalists across the U.S. And again, I'm very clear and honest with readers that I was misaligned. I was mismatched. I had this writing interest. I thought maybe if I was close to these journalists and close to the writing world, that opportunities would open up or provide me with a path. And I was completely wrong. It was more of a administrative job. It was much more media affairs and much more uh, much more much farther away from writing. And it was really when I was, trying to think of how to how to make that change, that I had sort of a pivotal week of very high level celebrity appearances that um, resonated with me, that, gosh, I don't care what they're saying. I don't care to go forward in this position. I really am interested in pursuing writing in a new way, with more satisfaction toward toward writing full time ultimately as a goal.
How long did it take you to realize that that job wasn't it for you?
Several years, because like everyone else, I had to pay the mortgage and I had to I had to really get my ducks in a row in order to make that next transition. And am really clear and honest with people about that because I'm not advocating anyone run out and quit their job or make these transitions. If anything, I'm really advocating that they take their time, reflect, really dig deep, um, think about the true motivations, um, and then be willing to accept the risk and the reward.
Mhm. Yeah, you definitely, when I started reading your book, definitely was clear that you're a very analytical and kind of deep person, with kind of what you I think, and I don't remember which page. Oh, it's like your turn where you are talking about journaling each day and kind of uncovering your true motivations. And then you ended up scanning the entries for last 6 months, so um, to kind of pick up on some things. So definitely struck me as yeah, very reflective introspection, and thorough person. And how about claiming? Rule number two is claim your power. So how do we claim our power?
Oh my goodness. That was a painful chapter and work situation. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can identify it. It's that moment when you're working for someone who just doesn't like you. And in that particular example, I call her the devil in the book because she enjoyed firing people. There are people like that, right? She enjoyed it. And I didn't know this, of course, when I accepted the job, but she had fired three previous people before me. And, um, and she was in the process of firing my colleague at the time that I joined. And so um, in that case, I want to just say that I was young and I didn't have the confidence. I didn't self-advocate. I think now there would be many more avenues for help within the organization, maybe through HR or through mediation, that sort of thing. But I didn't advocate for myself and uh, I didn't spend enough time on that. And I was essentially giving away my power because I was letting her call the shots. And I also had a lot of beliefs that I had to let go of that I thought, oh, well, the boss always knows best. And, I should fall in line and I should, um, you know, understand her perspective. And that was uh, wrong because she was not someone who had any type of team concept or interest in any of her employees, really, other than sort of she was very fickle and the assignment, whatever the assignment was never going to be met. That was the bottom line. So, some of the things that I talk about there in terms of reclaiming your power are to really ask yourself, what are the beliefs and what are the questions that you're holding on to that is keeping you stuck and keeping you in that place, and why don't you feel empowered? And it was really it was really a learning experience for me. And again, journaling really did help me immensely.
Yeah. I love that you're sharing these stories from a perspective that um so many people, like I've gone through it, so many people have worked with people, I mean, all the way up to toxic people and that are not a good fit. And I think what is helpful, like many times we try to figure it out on our own or work with the situation, work with the person, appease the person, right? And like turn inwards or change our own behavior. So I think what this helps is people to know that they are not alone and hopefully recognize it faster, because the faster you can recognize, it's my wholehearted belief, the faster you can recognize that it's no, they're not the right fitting job, or not the right fitting culture, or not the right fitting company, or not the right, person, and the sooner you can leave and make those pivots, the less, you know, when it is toxic, damage you sustain, and the sooner you can be on your like aligned path and match. And it's kind of the same similarities with relationships. And that's why I asked you, like, how long did it take you for this or that? It's just like sometimes we take way too long. We're so nice,
Oh,
so introspective, and but if you learn to recognize these signs quicker, it doesn't even have to be a haphazard or kind of like a reckless decision, but it can be actually an intentional decision by recognizing it quickly and then putting a plan in place to exit, right? The sooner.
absolutely. I think that's really spot on and well said.
Yeah. So that's why I love that you're sharing, because I mean, just I've talked to so many people. Just last week I was talking to somebody who's going through a merger, and this is the thing, not everybody hires a coach, and it depends on who they have as family members. It depends on the depth of situations, or kind of the um complexity of environments that they've been, and what kind of stakeholders and people they've had a chance to work with, and not everybody will be able to advise you in the right way. So these stories are, I think, really, really helpful when we can, you know, again, use it to quickly understand human nature in a way, and understand, especially for these introverts and for people who always are looking like for the fault in themselves. It's kind of like also in a toxic relationship. No, it's not you. Like this is not working out, it's not the right person. It's just not, nothing good will come out of it. So, how about the rule number three, go lateral?
Yeah, so I think that that's an important one to talk about because we're always talking about a career trajectory, a ladder. It's always upward, upward, upward. And we always want, more money, more prestige, a better title, that sort of thing. And what I realized in that story was that sometimes it's more important to have the flexibility or have, some sort of time um, back, whether that's a shorter commute or that's, not working overtime, that sort of thing. But it comes down to basically boundaries, right? What are your boundaries? And they tend to shift when you're in a new job and you're working your way through it and you're, of course, trying to make a good impression. And in that particular case, it was a, a job that actually turned into a crisis communication situation. And I also at home had, at the time, my husband was very ill. He had, we had just returned from overseas in that situation, and he had picked up an illness while we were abroad. So uh, the point is that in the go lateral rule, it's okay to set those boundaries, to define what you're willing to do, what you want, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice to get it. And in that case, I was willing to sacrifice the title, the prestige, and I just found another job that would match my salary. So I didn't have to necessarily lose money, but I was able to get the same amount of money in a much less prestigious job that did link me back to writing and editing. And it had all of these other wonderful benefits, like I say, of being close to home and no overtime and a much better work-life balance. And I say that it's important sometimes for the tree to have the roots grow laterally in order to strengthen that trunk. It's not necessarily always an upward climb and always an upward ascent.
Yeah, I love that. Which is your which is your favorite rule or the one that stands out to you most?
Well, definitely rule 10, embrace uncertainty, because that is the rule that I applied that has helped me love Mondays. So I definitely agree with that. It was not easy again. Like I say, it was something that I put a lot of time and effort into. And the ability to do what I'm doing now full time, it required a lot of um, cooperation and community with my husband, of course, and making some really big financial changes. So we, for example, we downsized and we changed our residence and changed our financial picture and did financial planning in order to create this environment that was acceptable to take a big risk, to embrace uncertainty, and to I'll in my case, give myself the freedom to fail if that's what was going to happen. But I needed to find out.
Yeah, to
And
go.
so far so good. It's just been an amazing ride. It's been an amazing journey. I'm learning every day in the book writing world as well as the book marketing world. And I'm so happy to say that there are 7 5-star reviews on Amazon at the moment for this book. And I'm so overwhelmed with joy about that. And the response has been that it's helping people, which was the goal, right? That folks feel less alone and they do feel validated. And the other really wonderful surprise has been that it's helping people at every stage of their career. So entry level folks are saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so helpful to sort of know what awaits me," right? The folks in mid-career are looking at it more like, "Okay, this is how she made these changes. I can apply a lot of this. I can uh, make sure that I have really a good plan before I make these changes." And they're thinking about all kinds of transitions, whether it's, new sector, new industry, new job altogether. And then the people at the end of their career, this has been really a big surprise, is that there are so many folks at the end of their career or in retirement who have read the book and they say, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had this 30 years ago, and I'm going to buy this for my son or daughter." And it's really become not only enjoyable read, but also a workbook for everyone who picks it up, as well as a lot of professional coaches are using it that way. So I'm so tickled that there are so many great uses that have emerged.
Yeah, that's why I love that each chapter has a journaling section and kind of the prompts, and it makes it really easy to use. That's perfect. How many years was a book writing on your mind before you started or before you?
Oh my goodness. I have to say, whether it's imposter syndrome or low self-esteem, I never thought about that I would succeed at it. I had that dream and I was thinking about it and I was studying and I was constantly doing this, like you say, analytical development. How would I do that? I had some other book ideas that were sort of like how-to manual type things that I was kicking around, but there's something that John Prine, who is a singer songwriter, he said that really resonated with me, and that is, if you write a song or you write a book, you really need to love, love, love what you wrote, because you're going to be singing it or talking about it every day of your life. And
That's
so
true.
I noticed that, with the other book idea that I had, I mean, it was well developed. It would have been incredibly successful and profitable and all those things, but I just didn't love it. I didn't love it enough to
Talk about
feel
it.
feel like I could talk about it every day.
That's such a
um,
good point.
so I'm really just so grateful and thankful for the opportunity that I've had.
That's a great point because I was going to ask you, do you think you should have started sooner, like written a book sooner?
Probably, but I don't really have any regrets, even with all the good jobs that turn bad. And even with all the ups and downs, I really don't have any regrets because I do believe that it all those cumulatively have helped me and make me the writer that I am today. And and again aligned with helping people and making a difference. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything. But I do wish I had this book when I was younger.
Perfect. And what would you say? So embrace uncertainty is your favorite, or however you want to call it, but how can we, because change is constant, right? In
Exactly.
anything that we want to explore, whether we want better job, more money, something that we perceive better, there's inherent uncertainty and change, right, into something unknown. So what helped you to embrace uncertainty?
Well, you just reminded me of a great resource, which is in the resource list at the end of the book. It's a wonderful book called Transitions by William Bridges. And that book was life-changing for me. And I read this book 20 years ago, and I've picked it up every year since then. And it exactly touches on the point that you're making that change is eternal, it's a constant. Um, every job has a cycle, every relationship has a cycle, as you were saying. And he really breaks down each of the phases of change so that you can recognize it quickly, like you said, and know what's happening. Sometimes in the very beginning, um, I think he calls it the neutral zone, where you're you just have that little inkling that something's wrong, something's off. This might not be the best fit. This might not be the best choice for me.
But we don't trust it. Our mind kicks in and we analyze ourselves to staying. We find all these good reasons why that's not true.
And I that's exactly right. And I found this book to be just so helpful to me because I have to say, as the humans that we are, we forget, and I would pick this book up every year and remind myself, oh, that's right. These are the phases. That's right. This is that, uncomfortable moment where you have to decide whether or not to take the risk and jump, right? And and so I highly recommend that resource. It's just and the other thing is it's a really well-written book. It's so interesting how he talks about the different phases of transition, whether it's work or life.
What was it called? It sounds amazing.
It's called Transitions, and
Okay.
the author is William Bridges. And I think it's been around for 40 years. It's such a good book. And I
Those-
think been reprinted so many times. So,
So, you just come across as such a sincere, heartfelt person, Kathleen. And, I want to thank you for um, devoting your time to share your journey, to share your book, to share your story and some of the lessons that you've learned. Um, where can people find more of you, connect with you, follow you?
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you so much for this opportunity. It's just been such a pleasure. Folks can follow and connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the usual places. And the book is available in all the usual places as well, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, also from the publisher, 10littlerules.com. And I love the connection. I love helping people. And I mean, just this week, I was emailing back and forth with someone who purchased the book this week, read the book this week, and is coming tomorrow to meet me at an in-person author talk. And I couldn't be more thrilled. And the fact that, he feels that it helped him is such wonderful, heartwarming satisfaction.
Yeah, those are the connections and the moments and feedback, right? That tells you that you did the right thing. I did want to ask you that when you mentioned people coming to you about their careers, so you kind of found yourself naturally in this position of almost like career advisor or a sounding board, or can you tell us a little more?
Yes, I again, I think that I am introverted and I am quiet, which means that I am listening and I'm listening intently and I'm watching reactions. I'm reading the room, and I think that skill perhaps was something that folks really, it resonated with people. And just the trust factor, the confidentiality and trust factor. Again, people really want to feel less alone and they wanted to feel validated in their stories. And I wanted to give them both of those elements, but I also wanted to give them encouragement. And by sharing my stories, I feel like that was helpful and they could know and understand that it really will be okay and it will work out and there are brighter skies ahead.
Mm. So was it the encouragement, or did you ever contemplate becoming like a career coach or
That's so interesting because I have such respect for career coaches and for personal coaches. I know a lot of them. They're friends of mine, and I am in awe of them and support them. But I never thought about it myself. No.
so it was more like kind of creating that space and
Right. And
fire.
and and this opportunity to create this resource that would reach so many people, it was really just to me an opportunity of a lifetime that I needed to seize.
I love it. So the book is called 10 Little Rules When Good Jobs Go Bad. Just to kind of repeat it as we wrap up the conversation, Kathleen Goggin. Um, and what a beautiful, beautiful gift.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. And I thank you again for this opportunity. It's just been awesome. I thank you and I look forward to our connections in the future.
Definitely. Was there anything I didn't ask that you wanted to share?
No, I just look forward to following along in your progress as well. I've really enjoyed your podcasts and I am with you in partnership to help people move forward.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.